What I'm saying is, or actually what's happening is the landlords can no longer do that for 2021. So there's no rent increase for incumbent tenants. Obviously, vacant units, you can put it on the market for $35,000 a month. You can, in theory, go until infinite. You can increase the rent however much you want because there's no incumbent tenant to increase it. It just wouldn't make sense because no one would actually want to rent out your unit if it's ridiculously high. But yeah, so that was an important note to say. How do we get on this again? Because you were saying, if these rents are dropping, if a landlord wants to say, I want to increase rent by 1 or 2%.
All right, by the landlord tenant board. I think that's stupid. The government is stupid for doing that.
The rent freeze bill?
Yeah, I don't agree with that at all. It is stupid. Because a tenant can easily say, hey, you want to increase rent? Sure. You can increase rent, but I'm leaving because I can get a unit down the hall for less. So really, a landlord is not doing themselves a favor by increasing rent by the 2 or 3%. They should thank the heavens that they have a tenant that's paying on time and choosing to stay there without saying, there's so many units available on the market. I can find something for cheaper. Have a nice day, Mr. Landlord or Mrs. Landlord, right? So I don't think the government needs to get involved and tell landlords they can't increase, because I can guarantee you by next year, property taxes are going to go up. Land transfer taxes are going to go up. Your carbon taxes are going to go up. Every kind of tax is guaranteed to go up because of the amount of money that the government's been spending due to this quarantine and the pandemic. And
Can I just play devil's advocate for a quick sec?
Absolutely. Please do.
So here's the thing about the rent freeze bill, right? You clearly think it's stupid.
Very.
I'm playing devil's advocate. I don't completely. I believe it's stupid now. Well, not entirely. I'm in the middle. But what I want to say on the other side of things is, I actually think this is going to be good for landlords. Let me tell you why. Because the reason we're seeing rental rates drop so much right now is because there's a consistent influx of turnover right now. People are leaving. People are rather buy. Rates are better than ever. They don't want to be downtown. I think this rent freeze bill will actually put a pause on the turnover of things. So people who are right now, for instance, think about it like this, right? People who are renting now, they can't afford an increase to their monthly budget of rent. And they're like, okay, well, it's too bad. I have to, I guess, vacate this unit and go get something cheaper. You have another, that enforces in reality that rental unit to go on the market. So you'll just have a further influx of inventory. And as we discussed, the demand simply does not match the inventory right now. That's why the prices are dropping in the first place. The supply exceeds the demand. So if there was no rent freeze bill, what would happen is the supply would continue to even increase. If anything, this is going to cap the amount of inventory that's going to come onto the market or limit it a bit. It's going to be a downward measure on the supply, so the prices won't drop as much. I actually think in the short term, this would be good for landlords. Does my logic make sense right now? Because just to see we're on the same page, do you see where I'm like what my argument is? That this will once again put a limit on how inventory. Right now, the problem is there's too much inventory and not enough tenants who want to actually take on the inventory. So this would make it so that there aren't new listings for rent because some guy had to vacate. Some tenant had to vacate because they couldn't afford the increase in rent. Now they'll just stay put, and the inventory will stay at a reasonable amount.
I see your logic, and I see where you're going with that. And if that's the case, it's possible that could happen. Yes. However, my opinion is that the market will regulate itself, and any landlord that wants to keep their tenant is not necessarily going to turn around and say, you owe me, a 2% increase when we renew our lease. You got to think about the situation, assess it, and act accordingly. And if you're a greedy landlord, you're going to end up with a vacant unit if you're trying to squeeze money out of your tenant. If you're a smart tenant, you're going to tell your landlord to fly a kite and you're going to find something else somewhere else for less money, right? I had a client that reached out to me. He lives in Markham. He wants to move downtown, and he's taking advantage of the situation right now because he knows rental rates downtown have dropped. He can probably pick something up close to or similar to what he's paying in Markham, but downtown Toronto, where historically the rental rates are higher. So, I'll be damned if his landlord decides to turn around and say, hey, the increase is 2%. We're going to renew the lease at, what was he paying? Let's say $17.50. Now it's $17.70. You're like, okay, sure. You want to increase your rent? Good luck with the next tenant that you want to increase the rent on. I'm going to move downtown and pick something up at probably the same rate or maybe even a little bit cheaper or a little bit more, but at least I'll be downtown where I want to live. So the market has to regulate itself. But my point is that the government is stupid for always intervening with with the market and trying to dictate and control what the market is doing. The market will do its own work. Tenants, people are smart enough to say, no, I'm not going to give you more money. And some may not be. And you know what? That's to their detriment, right? I understand that. Not everyone is that smart, will tell their landlord, no, I'm not going to pay you that money. And some may say, you know what? The $10, $20 is not that big of a deal for me. Let me pay him because I don't really want to move. I don't want to go through the hassle of moving or finding another property. That's also something that could happen and people are willing to pay it. Or they can say, listen, I'm not paying it. Screw you. If you want to, we can argue this at the landlord tenant board, or I'll leave and then you can fight amongst all the other units out there for the next tenant and potentially get less rental income on your property. So what's it going to be? And let people work it out on their own. The government doesn't need to intervene to tell people what to do or how to do it. That's why I think it's stupid, because the government always is trying to have a hand in something in order to protect the market, but the market and the consumers will figure themselves out.
I think this is actually protecting the market in a bit, because if we go along with your example, exactly, this wise tenant says, no, right now it's a renter's market. Right now you don't have the leverage. I have the leverage. Why are you going to increase it on me? I can just go rent something down the hall, as you mentioned, for cheaper, but I get the same unit. I can just leverage your offer against the vacant unit's offer. So I understand that. But that's precisely what I'm saying may happen. And if that continues to happen, you'll have more vacant units on the market, and it's going to be more advantageous to renters, which is good from their side of things, but it's going to be disadvantageous to landlords. And this is just this. There's other variables. If the pandemic continues, if we see record low rates for buyers, if we see people continue to work from home, there's no longer a need to be in a condo, all these trends concurrent with one another, I think this would just be an added negative or added bad thing to landlords. I think if there is a way to make sure that there isn't new listings every day on the market or every week on the market, and there isn't this influx, I think that's a good thing. If anything, I disagree with the Airbnb regulations more than this. I think this is a good measure. This protects both tenants and landlords, in my opinion. And obviously, I started this argument saying I'm in the middle a bit, but as I'm talking, I'm actually talking myself into it a bit. I actually think it makes sense. Now, this consequence might be unintended. I don't think when they were drafting the bill, they're like, let's protect the market.
It's about protecting the tenants is what they're trying to do.
But do you agree that's unintended consequence can also be good for rental rates? It could be just an added measure to make sure that it doesn't fall below fall further. It's like a safety net. Maybe it's unintended, but it's an unintended safety net.
I don't agree with that, because up until now, everyone has been complaining that it costs too much to rent and to live in Toronto or the GTA. Rental rates are through the roof. This is so expensive, that's so expensive, this and that. And this is the flip side of it. Let shit hit the fan. Excuse my language. Let it drop as far as it's going to drop, right? And the market will figure itself out. At some point, we're going to have immigration starting up again. More people will be coming to the city again, and they will then get back into the rental market, and the rents will start to increase again. That's going to happen in the next year or so, I think. And then once again, you're gonna hear people complaining that rents are too high. So this is the flip side. I think there's a balance. Let the markets figure themselves out. I'm not in favor for the market crashing for landlords. I'm also not opposed to it. If landlords are stupid enough to try and force more money out of their tenants when a tenants cannot pay, then you know what? Deal with a vacant unit, let it sit on the market for 2, 3, 4, 5 months, and then get lower rent money because you wanted to force $20 extra out of your tenant's pocket while you had a tenant living there, not giving you any problems. And that's what you have to deal with. Up until now, everyone's been complaining rents are too high, $2,100 for a one-bedroom condo downtown with no parking is too high. Well, now they're about $1,800, $1,700. Get into the market, take advantage, and move into a unit, right? That's the way it is. And I don't think the government should intervene to protect either the landlord or the tenant. I think they will figure themselves out. The market will regulate itself. It doesn't need government regulation. And the fact that the government's trying to protect either or one of the parties, in my opinion, is it's unfair to either one of them. I just don't think the government should intervene. That's just my opinion.